2:15 a.m. The corridors of Kensington Palace were silent and dark. Princess Diana lay awake in her bed, the fourth sleepless night in a row. The divorce papers sat on her nightstand, signed, but still not feeling real. The royal family had destroyed her. The media had demonized her. And now, at 36 years old, the most famous woman in the world found herself in the loneliest night of her life. Then came a soft knock at the door. Diana froze. No one could be in her private wing at this hour. Security protocols were too tight. Was it Paul Burrell, her private secretary? No, he would never come this late. Diana slowly rose from her bed, her heart pounding in her chest. As she approached the door, a low voice came from the other side. "Diana, it's me. Michael, please open the door. I need to tell you something." When Princess Diana opened the door, Michael Jackson stood in the corridor. Black fedora, black mask, dressed as always. But there was something in his eyes. An urgency, a fear, and Diana knew instantly. Michael Jackson, the most famous person in the world, had secretly entered Kensington Palace at midnight to save her, because he knew he needed saving too. And sometimes the most broken people are the only ones who can save each other. But what Diana didn't know was that this conversation would haunt Michael Jackson for the rest of his life. That 1 month later, she would be dead. And that he would spend 12 years carrying a secret so heavy, it would crush him every single day until his own death in 2009, July 19, 1997. 3 weeks earlier, Los Angeles, California, Michael Jackson sat in his Neverland Ranch library, staring at a newspaper headline he wished he'd never seen. Diana's despair. Princess breaks down in public. The photo showed Diana leaving a restaurant, mascara streaked down her face, photographers swarming like vultures around wounded prey. Michael's hands trembled as he held the paper. Not from his lupus, though the disease was destroying his joints more every day. His hands shook because he recognized that look in Diana's eyes. He'd seen it in his own mirror 1,000 times. The look of someone drowning in fame, suffocating under expectations, dying slowly while the world watched and took pictures. He picked up the phone, called his longtime friend and security chief, Bill Bray. "Bill, I need to get to London. Quietly. No press. No announcements. Can you arrange it?" Bill Bray had worked with Michael for 15 years. He'd learned not to ask questions when Michael's voice carried that particular tone. The tone that said this wasn't about a concert or a recording session. This was about something that mattered. "When do you want to leave?" "Tonight, Michael. You have studio sessions scheduled. The history album remixes need your approval. And your doctor said you need to rest. The tour exhausted your body. This can't wait, Bill. Someone's life depends on it." Bill heard something in Michael's voice he'd never heard before. Not urgency, not determination, fear. Michael Jackson, who had performed for presidents and kings, who had sold more records than any artist in history, who had faced death threats and allegations and media crucifixion, sounded afraid. "I'll have the plane ready in 3 hours." Michael hung up and looked at Diana's photo again. He'd met her 7 years earlier, in 1990, a charity event for sick children at Great Ormond Street Hospital in London. They'd barely spoken. A handshake, a polite exchange. But in that brief moment, Michael had seen something in Diana's eyes that shocked him. She was just like him, trapped, performing, dying inside while smiling for cameras. Over the years, they'd crossed paths occasionally, always at charity events, always surrounded by handlers and photographers and protocol. They'd never had a real conversation, never spoken honestly about what it felt like to be them. To be so famous that you stopped being human. To be so watched that you forgot how to exist without an audience. But tonight, that was going to change. Because Michael had finally understood something that took him years to learn. The most dangerous thing about fame isn't that it makes you visible. It's that it makes you invisible. People see your image, your brand, your scandal, but nobody sees you. And when nobody sees you for long enough, you start to disappear. Diana was disappearing. Michael could see it in that photograph. The same way he'd been disappearing for years. And he knew something else. If someone didn't reach her soon, she would disappear completely. Not metaphorically, Actually, what Michael didn't realize was that he had exactly 31 days to save her. 31 days before a tunnel in Paris would take her life. 31 days before the world would lose a princess. And 31 days before Michael Jackson would carry guilt so crushing that it would follow him to his own grave 12 years later. The flight from Los Angeles to London took 11 hours. Michael didn't sleep, couldn't sleep. He spent the entire flight writing in his journal, trying to figure out what he would say to Diana when he saw her. How do you tell someone you barely know that you understand their pain? How do you explain that you see them drowning and want to pull them to shore? He wrote, Diana doesn't know me. Not really. She knows Michael Jackson, the performer, the king of pop, the scandal, the tabloid headline, but she doesn't know Michael Joseph Jackson, the boy from Gary, Indiana who just wanted to make music and was forced to become a product, a brand, a circus attraction. How do I make her understand that I see her, not Princess Diana, not the royal, not the icon, but Diana Spencer, the woman who's suffocating under a crown she never asked to wear? The plane landed at London Heathrow at 3 a.m. on July 20th. Bill Bray had arranged everything. A private car, no driver, Michael would drive himself. A route to Kensington Palace that avoided main roads and cameras. And most importantly, contact inside the palace. Someone who owed Bill a favor and was willing to look the other way for 2 hours. Michael drove through London's empty streets wearing a black hooded jacket that covered his famous face. The city was asleep. No paparazzi, no fans, just silence. For the first time in decades, Michael Jackson was invisible, and it felt like breathing after drowning. But what neither Michael nor Diana knew was that this conversation would become the most important 2 hours of both their lives. That everything Diana would do in her final month would be influenced by what Michael told her that night, and that Michael would spend the rest of his life wondering if he'd said the right things or if he'd failed to save someone who desperately needed saving. Kensington Palace loomed ahead. Michael parked 3 blocks away and walked, keeping to shadows, moving like someone who'd spent his whole life avoiding cameras. Bill's contact, a night security guard named Thomas Whitmore, met him at a service entrance. She's awake, Thomas whispered. I saw her light on 20 minutes ago. 4th floor, West Wing, 3rd door on the left. You have 90 minutes before the next patrol rotation. Don't get caught, Mr. Jackson. If the royal family finds out I let you in, I lose everything. Michael nodded, pressed £5,000 into Thomas's hand. This conversation never happened. Never happened, sir. Michael climbed the back stairs, his heart pounding harder than it had during any performance. He'd sung for 200,000 people in Bucharest. He'd moonwalked across stages in front of royalty. But walking down this corridor to knock on Princess Diana's door terrified him more than anything he'd ever done, because this wasn't a performance. This was real. This was one broken person trying to save another broken person. And Michael had no script, no choreography, just honesty. And honesty was the one thing fame had spent years teaching him to hide. He stood outside her door for 30 seconds, gathering courage. Then he knocked, softly, 3 times. The door opened. Diana stood there in a simple white nightgown, no makeup, hair uncombed, eyes red from crying. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They just stared at each other. 2 of the most famous people on earth, meeting in secret, with no cameras, no handlers, no performance. Diana broke the silence first. Her voice was hoarse. How did you get in here? Does it matter? Diana studied his face. Really studied it. Not the Michael Jackson the world saw, but the man underneath. The tired eyes. The pain lines around his mouth. The exhaustion that no amount of makeup could hide. And she saw herself. No, she said quietly. I suppose it doesn't matter. Come in before someone sees you. Michael stepped inside. Diana closed the door and locked it. The room was modest for a princess. A bed, a desk covered with letters, photos of William and Harry on the nightstand, and everywhere, newspapers, tabloids, headlines screaming about Diana's every move, every mistake, every moment of pain turned into entertainment. Diana followed his gaze. I read them all, she said. Every horrible thing they write about me. I don't know why. Maybe because if I read it myself, it hurts less than hearing it from other people. Does that make sense? Michael nodded. I do the same thing. Every tabloid, every cruel headline. I read them at 3 a.m. when I can't sleep. And I tell myself they're lying. But after you read the same lies 1,000 times, you start to wonder if maybe they're true. Maybe you're what they say you are. Diana's eyes filled with tears. You understand. I understand. They sat down across from each other. Diana on her bed, Michael in the chair by her desk. And for the first time in either of their lives, two people who existed as myths finally had a conversation as humans. But what came next would change everything, because Diana was about to tell Michael something she'd never told anyone. A secret so desperate, so dangerous, that Michael would spend the next 12 years wishing he'd handled it differently. Wishing he'd said the right words. Wishing he'd saved her. Diana spoke first. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I want to disappear, not die. Just disappear. Take my boys and vanish. New names, new lives. Somewhere nobody knows who we are. Is that crazy? Michael leaned forward. It's not crazy. I've thought about it 1,000 times. Buying an island. Changing my name. Living as someone normal. Someone who can go to a grocery store without causing a riot. Someone who can sit in a park without cameras. Someone who can just exist. But you never did it. Michael shook his head. Because I'm a coward. And because I convinced myself that I owe the world something. That fame is a gift I have to accept gracefully. Even though it's killing me. Diana wiped her eyes. The royal family would never let me go. They'd call me an unfit mother. They'd take my children. They'd destroy what's left of my reputation. And the media would turn me into a monster for abandoning my duties. So you're trapped. We're both trapped, Diana said. You in Neverland. Me in this palace. Two different prisons. Same bars. Michael was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that would haunt both of them. Diana, there's something you need to understand. The world doesn't own you. The royal family doesn't own you. The media doesn't own you. You own yourself. And if you want to leave, you leave. Consequences and all. But what about William and Harry? You take them. You protect them. You teach them that their mother chose happiness over obligation. And when they're old enough to understand, they'll thank you for showing them that it's okay to choose yourself. Diana looked at him with something like hope in her eyes. You really believe that? Michael hesitated. And this hesitation, this tiny pause before he answered, would become the thing he regretted most. I believe that staying in a prison because you're afraid of what's outside is worse than dying. But I also believe that running away requires courage. I'm not sure either of us has. Diana's hope dimmed. So what do we do? Michael took a deep breath. We survive. One day at a time. We protect what matters. We ignore the noise. We remember that the people who truly love us see beyond the headlines. And we hold on to each other. Because the only people who understand this life are the people living it. Is that enough? It has to be. Because the alternative is giving up. And Diana, you're not someone who gives up. They talked for another hour. About childhood. About trauma. About the impossible weight of being symbols instead of people. Michael told her about his father Joe's abuse. The beatings. The constant pressure to be perfect. The childhood stolen and sold to the world as entertainment. Diana told him about the royal family's coldness. The constant criticism. The feeling of being watched and judged every second of every day. The loneliness of being married to a man who loved someone else. And somewhere in that conversation, something shifted. Diana sat up straighter. Her voice grew stronger. The desperation in her eyes was replaced by something else. Determination. I'm going to do something. I don't know what yet, but I'm going to use this platform they've forced on me. I'm going to speak up about landmines, about AIDS, about everything they tell me to stay quiet about. If I have to be famous, if I have to be watched every second, then I'll make it mean something. Michael smiled. That's the Diana the world needs. Not the silent princess. The warrior. But promise me something, Diana said. Promise that if something happens to me, you'll tell this story. You'll tell people that I wasn't just a headline. That I was a person, a mother, a woman trying to do something good in a world that wanted to destroy her. Nothing's going to happen to you, Michael said. But yes, I promise. What Michael didn't know was that he had just made a promise he would break, because when Diana died 31 days later, Michael wouldn't tell this story. He would keep it locked inside, a secret too precious to share, a conversation too sacred to turn into entertainment. At 4:30 a.m., Michael left Kensington Palace the same way he'd entered, through shadows, through service corridors, like a ghost. Thomas Whitmore let him out the back entrance. "Did you help her?" Thomas asked. Michael looked back at the palace, at Diana's window, where a light still burned. "I don't know, I hope so." But as Michael drove back through London's empty streets, something gnawed at him, a feeling he couldn't shake. He'd told Diana to stay, to survive, to use her platform, but had that been the right advice? Or should he have told her to run, to take her boys and disappear, to choose life over duty? He would spend the next 31 days wondering, and the 12 years after that, knowing he'd made the wrong choice. August 31st, 1997. Paris. Michael Jackson woke up at 6 a.m. California time to a phone call from Bill Bray. The words didn't make sense at first. Couldn't make sense. "Michael, turn on the news. Diana's been in an accident. It's bad." Michael turned on the television. The images were chaos. A tunnel, twisted metal, photographers, and then the words that stopped his heart. Princess Diana dead at 36. Michael dropped the phone, fell to his knees, and screamed, a sound of pure anguish that his staff would later say haunted them for years. Because Michael Jackson didn't scream, he performed, he smiled for cameras, he remained composed. But in that moment, every wall he'd built around himself crumbled. She'd called him 2 nights earlier, August 29th, said she was in Paris with Dodi, said she was happy, said she remembered what Michael told her about using her platform for good, said she was planning something big, a major interview where she'd finally tell her truth. Michael had said, "Be careful. The more you speak up, the more dangerous it becomes." Diana had laughed. "Michael, I've been in danger since I married into that family, but I'd rather die speaking truth than live in silence." Those were the last words she ever said to him, and Michael would replay them a million times, wondering if she'd known, wondering if some part of her understood that speaking truth in a world that profits from lies is the most dangerous thing a famous person can do. The funeral was September 6th. Michael didn't attend, couldn't attend, because if he'd stood there watching Diana's coffin pass, he would have broken completely. So he watched on television from Neverland, watched William and Harry walk behind their mother's coffin, watched the world mourn a woman they'd spent years destroying. And he wrote in his journal, 12 pages, everything. The secret visit to Kensington Palace, the conversation, Diana's desperation, his advice, his failure. The last line read, "I told her to stay. I told her to survive. But survival isn't living. And now she's gone. And I'll carry this until the day I die." Will kept his promise in a way. He never told anyone about that night. Not his managers. Not his family. Not the press. The conversation stayed sacred. Private. The last piece of Diana that belonged only to her and Michael. But he broke his promise too, because he never told the world who Diana really was. Never defended her when the conspiracy theory started. Never spoke up when people blamed her for her own death. He stayed silent, and that silence ate him alive. June 25th, 2009. Michael Jackson died in his Los Angeles home. When his estate managers opened his vault at Neverland, they found hundreds of unreleased songs, thousands of pages of journals, and one sealed envelope marked, "Diana never sent, never share." Inside was a letter, 12 pages, written on August 31st, 1997, the day Diana died. "Dear Diana, you'll never read this because you're dead, and I couldn't save you. Do you remember what I told you at Kensington? I said stay. I said survive. I said use your platform for good. But I was wrong. I should have told you to run. I should have told you to take William and Harry and disappear. I should have told you that your life mattered more than your duty. But I didn't. Because I was too afraid. Because I'd convinced myself that we have to endure fame because the world needs us. But Diana, the world doesn't need us. The world consumes us. And it consumed you. And now, it's consuming me. I'm dying, Diana. Not today, not tomorrow, but slowly, the same way you died, from the inside out. And when I'm gone, someone will find this letter, and they'll know the truth. That I failed you, that I could have saved you, that I chose wrong. I'm sorry, Diana. I'm so sorry. The estate managers debated for months about whether to release the letter. The conspiracy theories would explode. The royal family would deny everything. The media would turn it into a circus. In the end, they sealed it back in the vault, because some promises, even broken ones, are still sacred. And Michael's last wish, written in his will, was clear. Everything about Diana stays private, forever. Today, that letter sits in a vault. 12 pages, Michael's handwriting, Diana's name, and a conversation the world will never fully know. But here's what we can know. 2 people met in secret. 2 people understood each other in a way nobody else could. 2 people were drowning in fame, and one of them died 31 days later. Michael Jackson spent 12 years wondering if he'd said the right words. 12 years carrying guilt. 12 years knowing that sometimes the most important conversations are the ones we get wrong. Because here's the truth about fame. It doesn't just take your privacy. It doesn't just take your peace. It takes your ability to save each other. Because when you're drowning, you can't pull someone else to shore. You can only hold hands and sink together. Diana drowned in a Paris tunnel. Michael drowned in a Los Angeles bedroom. Both deaths ruled accidents. Both deaths actually murders committed slowly by a world that loved watching them suffer. And the saddest part, they both knew it was coming. They both saw it happening. They both tried to warn each other. But when you're trapped in the same prison, there's no saving each other. There's only witnessing, only understanding, only holding on until the end. Michael Jackson and Princess Diana. 2 prisoners, 2 witnesses. 2 people who understood that fame is a beautiful prison. And prison, no matter how beautiful, is still prison. The conversation at Kensington Palace didn't save Diana. Michael's advice didn't prevent her death. The letter he wrote was never sent. The promise he made was never fully kept. But in that 2-hour conversation at 2 a.m., 2 of the loneliest people in the world were finally seen, finally understood, finally human. And maybe that's all we can do for each other. Not save, not fix, just see, just understand, just be human together in a world that wants us to be symbols. Diana died 36 years old. Michael died 50 years old. Both too young, both too broken, both too watched. The world mourned them as icons. But maybe we should mourn them as people. People who just wanted to be seen for who they really were. People who found each other for 2 hours at 2 a.m. People who understood that fame doesn't set you free. It buries you alive. And sometimes, the only comfort is finding someone else in the same grave.